Today I'm talking to Jason Stent from winemaker at Paritua in Hawke's Bay. Jason, nice to see you, and congratulations on being one of our top wineries for 2022. It's a great achievement, so well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. It's a nice honour to get into the top 20. So we're very stoked with that, and it's always nice to chat to you too as well, Bob. So yeah, hi.
Paritua is owned by a Chinese investor, which allows you to get high-tech electronic grape sorting machines and other very useful winemaking toys. Does it also help you gain access to the Asian market?
Yes, it does. At first, the China market looked really good, but what we're finding out is that the Asian market is probably more lucrative, or at least larger in countries like Korea, Japan, and there's some new emerging Asian markets like Cambodia, Thailand, where I think also people's income is increasing and people are interested in wine and learning about wine. So that's a really good opportunity for us to try these other Asian countries, and so that's probably the biggest plus in having that Chinese connection, particularly through Cambodia and Vietnam, those sort of countries.
Your vineyard is in the Bridgepath Triangle area. What is it? What is that? People probably know gimlet gravels as a style. Can you explain how Bridgepath is different to gimlet gravels in terms of taste? Because they're just adjacent alongside each other.
Well, the Bridgepath soils are much older, about 10,000 years older, and they were formed over a much longer period of time. It was the old Narororo River, so it did flow through there. A lot of the gravel in there is more of the red metal gravels, whereas the gimlet gravels is more of those sort of grey-wacky stones. And much younger gravel. So the Bridgepath Triangle tends to have a little bit of soil, anything from almost nothing to about 50 centimetres of low soil loam on top. So what we're tending to find is we're getting very nice aromatics and very soft tannins, and I'd say sort of more chalky, grainy sort of tannins, and grainy at their biggest and silky and chalky at their sort of finest. So that would be the biggest difference, is that loam on top of the soil. It's all free draining soils because of those deep gravels. The gravel under our vineyard is up to 40 metres deep of gravel, so very free draining. So what we tend to get is really good aromatics and very soft, sort of powdery tannins.
And your flagship wine is with a curious brand name of 2112. Could you explain what that's all about? And just tell me a little bit about 2112, about how it was conceived, what you're trying to do, and how it's made, if you like.
Yeah. So the story goes that when the original owners of Paritua were trying to figure out a name, they didn't want to use reserve or special reserve or something like that. They wanted it to be unique. And at the time, we were exporting to France, of all places, and we were selling our wine in Paris. And our importer was in the country, and at dinner we were discussing the name and what we should call the wine, and it was his idea, and he said, why don't you call it 2112? And we were like, yeah, wow, why don't we call it that? So 2112 is our address, and it's a palindrome, I guess. So it works forwards and back. It's very unique. The wine will only ever come from the soils at Paritua Vineyard. So it's always going to be a wine of provenance and place. And that was always the ambition right from the very start. We'll never take fruit from another vineyard to put into 2112. So it's always going to be a chateau or, an estate only wine. But yeah, that's the basic story of it. Was our French importer said, "Why don't you do this?" And yeah, he was right on the money. And I think it says everything about that wine. It's a wine of providence and place.
Yeah, it's also a wine I would imagine that ages quite well, but I haven't. And I should explain, it's a Cabernet Sauvignon dominant blend with Merlot and Cabernet Franc, a combination I really rather like, and I certainly have enjoyed tasting the 2112 over the years. But in terms of aging, how's it looking? How is it as a long distance runner?
We think it'll age for 20 years easily, without any real problems. The 2007s are still relatively fresh. They're looking really good. So what's that? 13, nearly 15 years old. So they're probably right in that window of perfection. But if you like your wine with some age, but yeah. So particularly in those sort of higher acid years, we'll probably get up to 25 years of aging, no problem.
The other thing I was going to say, you've had a trio of very happy vintages recently, 19, 20 and 21. Do you have a favourite in the...
Well, it's a bit hard to say at the moment because the 21 and 20 are still in barrel. 20 is coming out of barrel very soon. I'm very fond of the 19, but the 20s have got a richness on the palate, which so the aromatics on the 19s are very high, and the palate's as lovely and silky as usual. But there's a depth in the 20s that might not. It's imperceptible, but for me, I think there's just a little bit more generosity on the palate in the 20s, and the 21s probably more towards the 19 with that higher aromatic component, and maybe not quite as generous on the palate. But it's early days, and the barrels are still. Particularly the new oak is still a little bit disjointed. It usually takes about a good year or so before they start to harmonise. Yeah, so I'd say at this stage the 19 is my favourite. But once we bottle that 20 and once we've actually blended it, I'll probably change my mind. But it's like asking who's your favourite child, because you've put so much into into all these wines. They're all favourites for their own reasons.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Actually, I'm going to have to wrap it up there. But once again, congratulations on getting in the top wineries list, and perhaps I'll see you in October in Auckland for the exhibition.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait, and I'll just be off a plane from the States, or back for a week, I think, and so yeah, I'll be raring to go. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Great, me too.